Welcome to Logistics Unplugged. My name is Brian Blaylock, and I'm your host, and I'm happy to jump in today to all things logistics. So let's pull back the curtain, take a look under the hood, and have a great discussion. And I am so happy today to be joined by Carly Bly. Carly is the VP of LTL Pricing and Carrier Relationships at Blue Grace Logistics. And Carly, so happy to have you with me today.
Hey, happy to be here. Good afternoon.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we've got some big things in the LTL world in front of us, and sometimes we have to jump into the deep end of the pool and just go try to solve problems, right?
Yes.
But I'm going to give you a minute before you have to do that.
Okay.
And I want to let the audience, we always say we're pulling back the curtain, so we're going to pull back the curtain a little bit, and we're going to learn a little bit about Carly and how you got from wherever there was to here and what led you into this industry. So tell me a little bit about the Carly story.
Yeah.
And we'll go from there.
Like a lot of people in this industry, I think I kind of fell into logistics after college.
Okay.
So I graduated college in 2008.
Okay.
Would date myself a little bit there, depending on how old people are.
That didn't work on me, Carly, unfortunately.
But if you recall what the economy was like back in 2008, there weren't actually a ton of jobs out there. So had a degree in international studies, thought I was going to travel the world. Turns out that doesn't pay very well. It doesn't pay your student loans back.
Oh, okay. So you had to get a real job instead.
Yeah, I had to get a big girl job pretty quickly. So fell into logistics. I actually worked for a freight forwarder for about 4 years. I started in customs brokerage. So
Okay.
I started on the import side, learned a lot about that, which we'll talk about later, classification, but that's kind of where I got my grounds, got my foundation in learning classification with the harmonized tariff system. So started with customs brokerage. I did account management, did some different jobs, and then moved over to the domestic side and started working for a 3PL in Chicago. Larger one where I got into more of the domestic space, and they really just needed help in LTL. And how it was kind of sold to me was, hey, if you've done air pricing and ocean pricing and harmonized tariff, it's probably the closest thing to LTL.
Perfect.
So do you think you can figure it out? And I said, sure. So
There you go.
here we are.
So you volunteered for this.
I did. I didn't know what I was getting myself into at the time.
Well, since both are a little bit of a pain and have their own complexities, then you stumbled right into just some new pains with a little experience from the old. So.
Yeah. So I've just kind of done the LTL thing ever since. Probably that was, 2012 that I kind of got into LTL. And
Okay.
yeah.
So for a minute, that's good.
Yeah,
So,
it's been a minute.
That's part A of the venture. The next part is what's going on with LTL. So I know a lot of the people that tune in and listen to us are in the industry. Some are just in business. They're shipping products. They're buying things, or they're just curious and they show up somehow. So we want to give a little bit to everyone, and we want to start with them understanding what's going on right now and talk to them a little bit about what NMFC codes are and how that relates to how LTL is priced. And we won't beat it to death because we know a lot of people do know those things on the call.
Yeah. So NMFC is the National Motor Freight Classification System. It's a range of numbers ranging from 50 to 500. It's a little bit goofy because you kind of jump around from, 85, 92.5. It's kind of, there is some method to the madness. What all of that method is, I'm not entirely sure. Don't know the background.
Yeah, I've never got the 0.5 part of that, but okay.
I haven't really understood that. So it is applied to freight to both help the customer understand things like how their freight is going to be stowed, how it's going to move in a network. It also relates to things like liability. But for the carrier side, it helps them understand how it's going to move in their network and how it's going to be loaded on their truck. So my general explanation to people who don't know LTL is usually, people always would ask when you were little, what's heavier, a pound of feathers or a pound of rocks,
Yep.
I tell people what's heavier, 500 pounds of pillows or 500 pounds of rocks. Now think about how much space does that take up, right? So it's the same weight, but 500 pounds of pillows is a lot bigger than 500 pounds of rocks. So that's essentially where the classification system came in and said, if we can apply a class and a number to freight based on its characteristics, ultimately its density, so how much space it's going to take up based on its weight, then we will apply this class system. And that was kind of what it was born out of.
That's what I got started. And you made me pick up my calculator and start trying to do math. So I figured out it was a trick question. So I'm really upset about this. It took me back 40 years to my SATs. I'll never forgive you for that. So that's a little bit about how the NMFC codes work and an explanation of how we probably started going towards some of the density conversations we're going to be in. So July 19th, right? That's an important day.
It's around the corner.
Right? So tell everybody what happens July 19th.
Yeah. So we have had a lot of time to prepare for this. So they did announce this late last year that this was going to happen. Typically, the NMFC updates pretty much quarterly, but it's not a massive change like this year. So this year, they're going to change about 2,000 commodities.
Wow.
Yeah, the biggest one is the density thing that you're talking about, right? So what they'll be doing is consolidating some of the groups, so the different characteristics, the names of the groups, that sort of thing. They're going to consolidate that down, but instead of having an 11 subcategory densities, they're going to have 13, which really just adds the class 50 and 55 at the beginning. So it's going to range from 50 all the way up, but that's one of the changes. There are a couple other changes. They are going to flag some of the commodities based on stowability, liability risks. That's just kind of like it's literally like a little hand picture of a hand in the book that just
don't
says,
move this stuff.
Yeah, it just kind of says, hey, if you're going to move this might have risk associated with it. So yeah, those are the big changes that are coming. They're going to update the NMFTA has a program called Class It, and they're going to update that. So July 19th, they're going to flip the switch. And they will go to more of that density-based.
I like it. And Carly, there are a lot of commodities that didn't even have the 11 range class that are now going to sit in that role too, right?
That's going to be the hardest one, right? So a lot of the customers who are familiar with the density-based, it's not a huge update for them if they're already doing it consistently. It's the ones where we have a few customers who just had two different classes.
Right.
Their commodity was typically based on how it was packaged or something different. And then maybe there were 2 or 4 different classes associated with that commodity. And a lot of those are moving to the 13 density. So that's going to be a big one.
A lot to learn.
A lot to learn, and a lot to learn very quickly. Because we've had a lot of time. They rolled out the official docket in March. So we've been working on this for a while. Hopefully a lot of our customers have been aware of it. It concerns me when I hear customers say, what is this? When is it happening?
No.
There are a few out there yet.
Open those emails we've been sending you for the last 6 months, please.
Yes.
Well, understanding that that's going to happen and understanding what the impact might be to some of those, what would your suggestion be? Everyone that we're talking to, everyone that's listening to us is not just a customer of yours at Blue Grace. They're folks that ship, folks that buy. What's a good step to take to start making sure that you're ready for this? Is there information out that lets you know where the freight will be on July 19th, what the class will be on July 19th?
Yes. So there's certainly information out there. The NMFTA has a website. I want to say it's nmftachanges.org. They made one specific for this.
Okay.
You can go on there. Yeah, you can actually load a document, and it can, based on your NMFCs, and it will tell you what is changing or if it's changing. So that is available. I just encourage people to revisit their SKUs and their NMFCs. Unfortunately, we see that only about 60% of customers actually put the right information on bill of ladings.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be so important that they include the DIMs going forward. They've got to start dimming their freight, and they've got to be accurate.
And even in that, and let me know if I'm going down a wrong path here, but many times when the carriers disagree with what the class is of the freight, and they don't include the NMFC code anyway, then they're going to default class. And I'm guessing that's not going to be better after this.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't think so. No, it could be very costly to not do this accurately. So that's why we've been trying to get in front of it.
So have your dimensions on the BOL, know your NMFC code. If you don't know what it is, she just gave you good information on where to go to find it. But, I know someone that might be able to help you. Yeah. She may actually be on this call. So reach out to someone on our team here and see if you can get a little bit of help. But there is plenty of silver lining around this. I know that I talked to a few of your team members, and it sounds like not everyone that's being affected is even being affected negatively.
Right.
Is that reasonable?
Yeah, that is reasonable. So we have customers who are doing it correctly, and it will actually be in their benefit to use those 13 subclassifications. So, when they're able to add class 50, class 55, that more dense freight, they're actually going to pay less to move that freight. So that's actually really good for them. We've had some conversations with carriers about how that's going to affect their OR because they've costed the freight for a certain classification. And if that changes too low, that could really throw off their OR too. So I've been told they will be watching it closely.
Okay. For the acronym dummies, Carly, tell them what that means. Tell them what OR is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Operating ratio.
That's okay. Yes. How much money are they making on their trucks?
Yes. How much money are they making on the dollar, right?
I think we find ourselves sometimes in this industry, and I'm talking to people all the time saying NMFC, NMFTA, and the OA, and the like LOA. Let me get this. Like, listen.
Can you
identify a few of these things? What in the world did you just say to me? And what language did you say it in?
Yep.
So I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic because some of the risk that's in freight drives freight increases in cost. Mm-hmm. Would that be a fair thing to say? And
yeah, the other way that they say that is freight moves freight. So the better freight that they have on, the more they can load, the better it will be. Trucks usually dim out before they weigh out.
Right.
So this is really just a way of carriers making sure they're getting paid for what they're moving and making their trucks more efficient on the road.
Yeah, and I think that can have a benefit to all of us. I mean, we know how they play the line haul game, trying to figure out. It's one thing to pick up carriers and the delivery carriers, but when they're playing that little Tetris game to try to figure out how to use every inch of that carrier or that truck, they need to understand what is it and what are the DIMs,
exactly.
And now you have a reason to give it to them.
Yeah, and if they can load it on top of other freight, all of that goes along with it.
Absolutely. Make sure you mark your BOL accordingly.
Yeah.
Just in case you can't, so you don't get the piano on top of the feathers.
That's right. That's right.
So I'm excited that there are good pieces of information out there, but there's always things that are challenging. And I want to go down a couple of roads that might be a little bit challenging. And I'll ask you to explain a little bit for me and then talk about how it could be affected. And I'll use another one of those acronyms, CSPs, customers that have customer-specific pricing. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of those believe that they're not going to be affected by these changes because they have customer-specific pricing.
Yeah.
I'm guessing that's not really true, so help everybody understand what the impact can be there.
Yeah. And this is something that we as a team really dove into the past 3 or 4 months, ever since they released it in March. So we were looking at customer-specific agreements that we have and looking at things like, is there an FAK? Because right now they might have an FAK thinking that they're fully covered, but they might have that 50 and 55 freight, which might be their benefit to use, but again, might then create a problem with the OR. So it is kind of this crazy game of figuring out how it's going to work out. I don't think we fully know until this takes place on July 19th. But looking at things like an FAK, we did have a carrier, I say this carefully, reach out about potentially taking an increase on a customer because they knew that it was going to have significant impact to them.
Right.
So not a significant increase, but enough to say, hey, we know this is coming. We know what this customer's freight looks like. Their class actually isn't changing, but there are other ramifications associated with that.
Sure.
So, yeah, there certainly are challenges and questions around customer-specific pricing. We're addressing them with the carriers, and a lot of the carriers are getting in front of this as well. So they've reached out to us to be proactive, like I said, this carrier in particular for a slight increase, but some of the others have just had a conversation with us of, hey, we see this customer, they never put the right class, or they just always ship at class 85, and we know it's not 85.
Right.
So we're just having a lot of conversation around it and how to do it the right way. And I think that's the biggest thing right now is educating our customers on doing it the right way, so that they don't feel too much pain come July 19th.
Very fair. And in the interest of being consistent to our acronym monopoly that we're playing today, FAKs are afraid of all kinds. Means whatever's on the pallet is going to fall within a certain range. But, that was actually, you beat me to where I was going to go with one of my next questions outside of just customer specific. Some of those FAKs have a range. Now, that range is no longer applicable, I'm guessing, if now the new class of the freight falls outside of that range.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah, so there could be a new class, or for instance, we have a customer who ships, I think you mentioned them earlier, they ship 2 different products, and those 2 products, the class doesn't ever change. Previously, it's just been the 2 different classes. So we had an FAK in place so that no matter what they shipped, it would just fall into that FAK. Well, now both products are moving to a 13 subclass density. So that FAK, though it still exists, would only cover a very small portion of those 13 subcategories.
Right.
And so those are some of the conversations that our team is having with our customers and our carriers to say, what is the right thing to do for the customer? Because their freight isn't changing. Again, they've costed it to a certain extent in their network once they understand how that freight moves. So is it fair to expand the FAK? Do we need to move to actual class? If we do, what does that look like for the customer? So just a lot of conversation around this right now.
And you just, that last piece of what you mentioned, it's like you're stealing thoughts from my brain, probably, is having better information. We talk about the things that LTL cares, and you know this a million times better than I do, but I know that in the conversations that I've had with them, they want to make sure they've got density at pickup, at delivery, that they can master their line haul and optimize those trailers. But they also want to remove risk. And because the industry in general, shippers, not all of them, but a lot of them have been a little less giving of good information, clean information. That's a kind of way to put it, right? And I think the accountability that's probably going to be there now is going to wind up being good for the industry too, because when the carriers can understand the freight on the trucks, that risk piece of it is reduced. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, absolutely. And as I mentioned earlier, some of the classification is associated with the liability. So liability can change based on class, commodity, that sort of thing. So really, I think it will help carriers assess liability better too. Because right now, liability is a hot topic right now too, just because what they cover, and there's so many different exceptions and that sort of thing. So I do think that this will coincide with liability, that they'll be able to reevaluate and apply liability in a more methodical manner.
That would be nice.
It would be nice, wouldn't it?
I love our carrier partners, and they do such a good job. And I've had a great time when you hosted your carrier summit here a while back, getting to talk to all of them. And I'm gonna hold you accountable to something we talked to them about in a minute.
But, gosh!
But those discussions led us to understand a few things, that they want to do right by the customers, and they also want the customers to do right by them. And that concept of a shipper of choice, somebody who packages their freight better, documents their freight better, all of those things go into. So if you are the owner or leader in a company that ships product, pay attention to that right now, right? Because it's going to reduce your freight as a percentage of goods, and that is the job, right? That's what we're trying to accomplish. All right, so Carly, I'm going to switch gears on you.
Okay.
No truck pun intended on the gears, but it's the dad in me. Sorry. When we had your carrier summit a few weeks ago, we got to have some great conversations with all of our tremendous partners, and they really are, and that's what they are, is our partners. I asked them a couple of questions, and I'm going to have to hold you accountable to at least one of those, because you can't sit in that seat and not have a favorite trucking song.
Oh, gosh.
So it's on you now, Carly. This is payback, carrier friends. Now it's on Carly.
So I blame one of my team members for singing this song this morning. It's been stuck on my head all day, and it's On the Road Again.
Oh, a little Willie Nelson.
It's also the name of the office that I'm sitting in, because, as you know...
Well, that's not fair.
The offices are all, like, names of songs.
Musically named.
So I think that's how it came up, is my team, somebody was trying to find me, and they were like, she's in On the Road Again. And then everybody started singing it, and here I am how many hours later, and it's still in my head.
And you do know, in the interest of that song choice, that you went from being on the road again to they sent you to rehab.
That is true.
That's the room that we're in now, folks. Just so you know, that's just the name of the room. So
that's right.
Thank you, Amy Winehouse, for providing us with that and getting us a lot of good laughs. So, Carly, this was great information for us today. I had a great time talking with you about it and letting everybody know a little bit about you. And I do, before we wrap it up today, we know we have this in front of us. We know we have a lot of challenges in front of us, but that they're all things that can be accomplished. So give everybody a good next step. What should be the next thing that they do, knowing what we have in front of us in July? And it doesn't have to be just about that, but what's a good next step for those shippers?
Yeah. I know I started saying earlier, number one is just checking their list of SKUs and their NMFCs, because some of them aren't even updated from previous NMFCs. So when we started to analyze customer data, we realized they were using, it's called them expired NMFC numbers that don't even exist anymore, which just happen to not be caught by carriers. I don't think that's going to happen going forward. I think everybody is going to be very attentive to what is on the BOL.
Sounds like it.
So really starting with that, but then working with their operations, educating their teams, having a plan for dimming and determining density. I mean, there are density calculators all over the place. You can Google it. You could probably put it into Chat GPT and it'll tell you what the density is at this point.
Someone smarter than me could do that, but I was born prior to a time that will know how to use that very well. So our producer is pointing, saying she'll handle that for me. So I've got this. Thank you, Milvia.
Yeah. So really just, understanding what they currently have and what it's changing to, if it's changing. Like I said, operationally, just being prepared to have that correct information on the bill of lading. And I don't mean to oversimplify it, but that really is what needs to be done. I know it's easier said than done, especially for those customers that are picking and packing freight very quickly, trying to get pallets out the door. But it's critical that they take a moment. And there are so many different things out there, too. I think you've heard of Cubiscan. I think you met with Scooter.
I did.
Yeah.
We did one of these with Scooter.
Yeah.
He was
so
great.
I was actually out at Cubiscan a couple weeks ago and got to see it in action. It's pretty cool to see what they're doing. And there are other systems out there and ways to get help. So things that don't necessarily have to slow down your process, that's probably worth investing in on the front end.
I agree with that, and that was a good call out too for the dimensionizers. I like using that word; it makes me feel like a superhero. I'm going to go to the cave and get my dimensionizer and solve freight crises. So, guys, that's going to be a wrap, and I can't tell you how much we appreciate all of you tuning in every Tuesday. Please do it again next Tuesday. And Carly, thank you so much for being here today and helping educate us all.
Yeah, appreciate it.